Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video I'm going to tell you the one mistake that self-taught pianists always make. There are a lot of mistakes that all pianists make, but by far the biggest mistake that I see is playing instead of practicing. This mistake is going to be the difference between improving the same amount over 1 week or over 1 year. So in this video I'm going to tell you what playing is, what practicing is, when to play, when to practice, and I'm also going to tell you how you can avoid doing the wrong thing and really elevate your piano playing. So what is playing? Let's define it. So playing is starting without any specific aim, it's doing large sections or an entire song or piece, it's performing for yourself or for others, and it's testing the final performance. If you're doing any one of these 4 things, then you are playing rather than practicing. And don't get me wrong, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it depends on what stage you're at with what you're learning and what you want to achieve, because what you want to achieve might not be aligned with how you're going about it. So here's what I mean. Firstly, starting without a specific aim. When you're playing instead of practicing, you might start from the beginning and just set off working your way through the piece, gliding over mistakes and working your way to the end or until you just can't play it. If you find yourself doing this, then you are definitely playing and you shouldn't be. Sure, sometimes you want to sit down and just have a go, but you need to be aware that this is not going to improve your playing. What it can do is highlight specific problems which you can then practice. Which is why it's not always a bad thing to have a play through once when you need to work out what you need to work on. But playing from the start repeatedly won't often help. Secondly, doing large sections or an entire song or piece. Practice requires focus and moving the dial while you're playing. This is something that isn't necessarily going to be the case if you are doing large sections. When you're just playing, of course you want to play entire pieces or big sections of it because you are doing it for enjoyment. But if you are sitting down with the aim of getting better or making a piece of music better, then you won't be able to do this without really focusing down on what the issues actually are. This is usually specific things, and if it's not specific to an area of a piece of music, then use exercises to isolate the issue. For example, if you are having problems with pedalling, then that might not be specific to an area of the music, but you can use a scale or something else to isolate that problem without affecting the piece of music. Thirdly, performing for yourself or others. Now obviously, if you ever find yourself on a stage, you won't be wanting to work through and playing bits of a song or a piece. You are clearly going to just play it so your audience can enjoy the music, and the same goes if you're wanting to listen to the piece of music yourself. You should be able to get to a point with your learning where you can just take a piece of music that you spent time practicing and then play it for your own listening enjoyment. This is ultimately what music is all about. However, once again, it depends on what your actual intentions are. If you are sitting at home, you need to be really clear with yourself as to whether you are hoping to make it better or just enjoy it. Because if you spend all your time playing it through, it won't help your playing very much, but you may enjoy listening to it. And testing the final performance. If you spent a while preparing something and you think you've got to the stage where you just need to check that you can get it all together in one go, then it's a good idea to play it and see what happens. This is a good reason to play something through. If you have a piece close to being finished, the next logical step is to start getting used to getting from the start to the finish. In this situation though, you probably want to assess any issues as they come up and make a mental note so you can go back and practice those afterwards. So if you are someone that falls into playing when you really should be practicing and breaking things down, then check that you're doing it for the right reasons. And those are playing with the sole purpose of enjoyment, or playing to identify things to practice. If you are finding this video useful so far, be sure to subscribe and tickle that like button, please. So how do you know when you are practicing? Good question, Matt. Well, practicing is playing with a specific targeted aim and only playing as much of the music as you need to achieve what you need to. When practicing, you are essentially leaning into the idea of delayed gratification, which is putting in the hard work now so that later you can play much better. This is why it's such a struggle sometimes to sit at the piano and actually start making a difference to your playing, because it's so much easier to sit and aimlessly play rather than analyse the music, target the problems, and repeat them lots of times. So this is a mistake that most self-taught pianists make because you don't have a teacher giving you aims on a regular basis. So here's what you should do to avoid this big mistake. Before you play anything on the piano, make a list of aims or problems that you want to fix. That can be a list of bar numbers or techniques you want to master or anything like that. Then give yourself a structure. That might be 10 minutes of scales to help your technique, 10 minutes of sight reading, and 20 minutes of problem solving. You might spend more or less time practicing than this, but the point is to give yourself structure so you know what you are going to be doing with your time. If you don't know off the top of your head exactly what problems need fixing in whatever piece of music you are learning, then that is a good reason to play it through and make a note of what needs to be done. And that's the difference between playing and practicing. Practicing is targeting specific problems and making yourself get better, whereas playing is either identifying problems so that you can then practice them, or just doing it for the enjoyment of yourself or an audience. If you get used to planning your practice, you can really avoid wasting valuable practice time and get much better much quicker. Something else that will help you get 10 times better at the piano is getting the most out of scales, sight reading and improvisation, which is exactly what this video is about, so be sure to go on through and I will see you there.